Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, as a petrol head, whenever I go anywhere abroad, I'm always a little bit obsessed by the local cars. You know, all those cars that we just don't get in the UK. I'm currently here on the island of Bermuda, and there are lots of weird and wonderful cars that we just don't get in England. Today I'm in something quite unusual. It's this. It's a Suzuki APV. Now, APV stands for all-purpose vehicle. I know what you're thinking, that must have been one hell of a brainstorming session, mustn't it? It's essentially a compact van, but with seats in the back, and I think it's perfect for the narrow roads of Bermuda. In the UK, we got the van version called the Suzuki Carry, which replaced the old Bedford Rascal. But this one's slightly different. As you can see, it's a very compact vehicle, and the actual footprint isn't that large, so it's perfect for parking in tiny spaces. It doesn't actually take up much more space than something like a Nissan Qashqai or a large family hatchback. Let me give you a quick tour then, because what they've done here is something quite clever. They've utilised every last inch. Okay, let's start at the back then. So the seating formation is 2, 3 and 3, so this tiny thing actually seats 8 people. And you still get a boot. Now when all the seats are in place, the boot isn't that huge. I've currently got 3 or 4 rucksacks in it, but it is enough for your weekly shop. Just about. And what's good is that the third row of seats are actually big enough for 3 people. Usually in lots of 7-seaters, they're only suitable for kids. But in the APV, you could get 3 adults back there. The doors are very wide, so it's easy to get in and out of, and you get a little step. I'm surprised they didn't fit it with roller doors, because that would have been a bit more convenient. This one's been kindly lent to me by a friend of mine, so excuse some of the personal possessions. They don't all, for example, come with a pillow. Let's hop inside then. So there's loads of legroom here, more than you'd get on a Range Rover or Mercedes S-Class. And because the roof steps up, there's actually a decent amount of headroom. Visibility is very good, it's almost like being sat in a fish tank. It allows a lot of light in, which when it's 30 degrees in July in Bermuda, isn't the greatest thing actually. One positive is that you get rear climate, which is handy for your passengers, they'll be grateful of that. But one negative is that the floor's quite high. For quite a tall vehicle, you'd expect more lower legroom. You get a couple of cup holders, you get plenty of storage space, you get some door pockets in the door cards. This is almost the ideal vehicle here because it's perfect for doing airport runs and that sort of thing. Every time you get guests come and visit you, this is perfect. They do use them as taxis and ambulances and that sort of thing in many other countries. In these kinds of all-purpose vehicles, it's really important that getting into the third row of seats is easy. Let's try and figure it out. There's a lever here. Well, how easy is that? I genuinely didn't know how to do that before. That is quite easy. And then, you still get plenty of legroom and headroom. It's not bad, is it? You even get armrests. I don't know why, but I always feel like a little kid when I'm in the third row of anything. Feels like I'm on a road trip somewhere. Instantly, I feel a little giddy. All the seats are very comfortable as well. And to say this is an old vehicle, it stood the test of time. What's good is that you can take these seats out and store them in your garage or somewhere at home, and then you've got a really practical car. Well, it's almost like a van, isn't it? Right, let's head back outside then. It's worth mentioning actually, and this will make you laugh, I found a tyre brand that even I have never heard of before. We are rolling on. You ready for this? They're by a company called Cosmo, and the actual brand is El Jefe 2, or El Jefe Dos, I imagine it's pronounced. That's a new one on me. Now, I know it's a van, but it's not a bad looking thing really, is it? You get some chrome trim here, and body coloured bumpers. I know it isn't sexy, but it's not offensive either, is it? Headlamp could do with a buff. Let's have a look under the bonnet then. So what you're looking at here then is not an engine because the engine's under the front seats. You can get it with a 1.5 or a 1.6 litre 4-cylinder petrol. Locked. And it's rear wheel drive. So the little 4-cylinder engine, which is available with either 90 horsepower or 101 horsepower, is located here under the front 2 seats. In terms of the interior, up front, it's all quite functional really. It isn't the most stylish, but again, it doesn't feel like you're in a van. It does feel like you're in a car. Because it's a very narrow vehicle and you sit up quite high, visibility is superb. You can see all 4 corners. The doors are quite narrow. It's almost like an old Defender. Because of the markets this is available in, it's all very basic. There isn't that much to go wrong. I mean, for example, this doesn't even have ABS. But you do get 4 electric windows, air conditioning, and a 12-volt socket. What more do you need? You do get plenty of storage and a decent armrest, which is nice and comfortable. You get an ashtray down here, you get a decent sized glove compartment, and more cup holders in the door pockets. The gauge cluster and instruments are all very easy to read, and everything it has, alright, it doesn't have that many extras, but they're all very easy to find. You get electric mirrors and these handy grab handles. Should we take this for a drive then, see how it performs? Let's do it. Get the aircon on. Okay then, in case you were wondering, this is Jobson's Cove. I imagine fully loaded with 8 people and your weekly shop, it would feel a little bit underpowered, this. While I've been driving around this morning, it does feel surprisingly nippy just with me in. But yeah, once it's fully loaded, I don't think it'd have an awful lot of power. It's fine here in Bermuda where the speed limits are very leisurely 35 kilometers an hour. But anywhere else, I think you might come unstuck. Before we continue, I just need to say a quick thank you to today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Car Vertical. Now, whilst you might not be in the market for a Suzuki APV, I mean, you might be, who knows? But before you buy any used car or bike, you need to do a thorough vehicle history check, and I always use Car Vertical. It's really easy to use. All you do is go to carvertical.com and type in the reg or the VIN number. This, by the way, works in 35 different countries, so it checks hundreds of millions of cars. And it just gives you a better idea of what you're buying. So it'll tell you if it's ever been stolen, written off, had a mileage rollback, or has outstanding finance on it. If you have a smash in Somerset or a bump in Bredbury, this will tell you. It isn't expensive and it's cheaper still if you use my promo code HIGHPEAK. That's HIGHPEAK, all one word, and you save yourself 20% off each and every check that you do. Or alternatively, click the link below in the video description. But yeah, I can't recommend them enough. And thank you, Car Vertical, for sponsoring today's video. Right, back to the APV. What's funny about driving this is every time I take a corner, it feels like it's going to roll over. So you do have to back off the accelerator a little bit. I take these corners about as confidently as I do on my bike. Because I'm sat on the engine, you can't lower the seat, which is a little bit annoying. It feels like I'm sat on a bar stool, really, rather than a car seat. It's quite a peculiar driving position, really. It's quite fun to drive, though, in a funny sort of way. I almost feel like a bus driver. Although the seats themselves are quite comfortable, the driving position's a little bit odd, so I can't imagine this being particularly comfortable after 4 or 5 hours on a road trip. Again, it's fine here in Bermuda because from one end of the island to the other will only take you about an hour. What else can I tell you about it then? The air conditioning's very good, as is the sound system actually. That was a surprise. I thought it'd be all rattly and tinny, but it isn't.
Career's really taking off. It's like we never even happened, baby. Tell me.
I've been driving this all morning with a grin on my face. It's quite charming, it's quite characterful. You can't really hate this thing. It's really practical and it just seems very honest and innocent. The gearbox is pretty good as well. It's quite smooth. The ride quality isn't too bad either. I thought this would ride like a van and it doesn't. It rides like a car, really. Visibility is excellent. You can see everywhere. Oh, hang on, corner. Do you remember that episode of Top Gear where I think it was Richard Hammond bought a Bedford Rascal and he rolled it? Not sure if they'd modified it so it'd roll over easier, or whether that's just a standard feature or quirk of the car, but this does feel similar. In terms of fuel efficiency, this one's been doing about 25 miles per gallon round town. And I was going to say on a steady motorway run, but there aren't any motorways in Bermuda. I imagine though you'll get mid-30s on a run, so it shouldn't be too costly to fuel. The steering's nice and light, it's nicely assisted. It's just a very easy vehicle to drive and be in. Everything's just easy and user-friendly. I think these should have been available in the UK. It would have given larger families another option. You know, when you think about something like the, Vauxhall Zafira, it's only available as a 7-seater. Whereas this would seat one more person, and it's just a bit more versatile. One thing to point out, though, which is quite annoying, the indicator on the other side. So every time you go to put the indicator on, this happens. I know I'm only doing 35 kilometers an hour right now, but there isn't an awful lot of road noise. It's quite refined. You can barely hear the engine, and there isn't an awful lot of noise coming from my El Jefes. Because Bermuda's a small island, there are lots of rules and regulations with motorcars. So annoyingly, they have very strict regulations on the size and width, and the newer APV, the one which replaced this model, doesn't qualify. And that means this is the last era of APV you can buy in Bermuda. Right, I'll do a performance test then. Yeah, it's quite slow that. From what I can tell, all that changes is the volume. Like I say, it's fine here on these little roads, but anywhere else, it might be a little bit too underpowered. You do see an awful lot of interesting cars here in Bermuda. Lots of Japanese market cars that you just don't get in the UK. For example, because of the strict size regulations here, you don't get things like the new model Kia Sportage. I'm guessing it's just too big. So instead, you have things like the Kia Seltos, which I've never heard of, or the Hyundai Creta. You don't have the new model RAV4 either, so you have a Toyota Raze, or a Toyota Rush, or a Toyota, is it the Avenza? I don't know. I only ever see them when I come here. I don't actually know which market they're made for. In the UK, everyone seems to be obsessed with SUVs. The people carrier will go the way of the saloon car. Eventually, brands will just stop making them and make SUVs instead. So I think it does leave the door open for things like this, a practical van/car. You know, thinking about this, it'd be very good if you either have a lot of kids or foster children or something like that. It'd be a really practical car. All right, thinking about it, that is a very specific use case, isn't it? Still, worth mentioning, I thought. I know this might be quite a niche review for you guys, but I just thought it was interesting to get something unusual on the channell. You know, something that you just don't see in the UK. That was my theory anyway. In reality though, I've kind of run out of things to say about it. It's a very basic thing. It's one of those cars that does what it says on the tin. It gets the job done. It's practical. It's an all-purpose vehicle. There you go. So on that note, thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. I'll leave the link below. And yeah, cheers guys. See you next time.